The Commander Precon decks are always interesting to look at from a financial aspect. They're not really on the reprint horizon. They were brand new cards in these Precon decks, and so they're going to be that price until we do randomly see a reprint of them down the road. Let's take a look at the most expensive cards from Commander 2021, the Strixhaven decks, and see which cards we think are going to go up in price or go down in price, and the video starts right now.
Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who power our channel. Check out our Patreon for monthly giveaways, exclusive content, and even a starring role in our fan fight series. Link in the description below.
Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. I am Joel. We're going to cover the most expensive cards and what we think the price of these cards are going to do in the future for Commander 2021. But before we do, if you would go down there, hit that like button if you like the video by the end of it. Hit that dislike button if you don't. First time doing a video like this specifically about the Precon deck, so I want to know what you think of it down below. Let's get into this. So obviously the place to start here is with the commanders. Sometimes the commanders are wildly powerful, sometimes they are not. And when we have a set of 5 that all come out at once, they sort of run the full gamut. Inevitably though, the commanders become the most desirable pieces from this a lot of times, with the exception of some very strong like instants and sorceries that sometimes get printed. With Adrix and Nev, I would say as far as the hype meter goes, this one is at the top. It's one of the most expensive, tied for the most expensive with Osgir, which is the other most hyped commander of the 5. Adrix and Nev and Osgir all hovering around a pre-order price of about the cost of the deck, about 30 bucks. With a group of 5 commander precons, normally 2, maybe 3 will all rise in price or sort of find a high living ceiling, and that's where their price will stay. 1 or 2 of them will sort of middle and be in the $10, $15 range, and then one's normally at the bottom because it's either very narrow or set specific with its mechanics. At the top with these commanders, the best I can see, you've got Adrix and Nev and Osgir holding the most value. In between, you've got Breena the Demagogue and you've got Zaffai Thunder Conductor. Breena's definitely above Zaffai. I think Zaffai's a little more straightforward in its build. It wants big CMC spells. Whereas Breena, people aren't really sure yet about this commander. It seems like a really fairly costed at 3 commander. It's really easy to cast multiple times over the course of a game, and it's got this weird political aspect to it. It's also got draw a card tacked onto it, and you know as well as I do that that always makes a pretty good commander. So Breena a little bit ahead of Zaffai, more in the like $15, $20 range right now. Zaffai living in that $15, maybe a little less, $10 range depending on where you're pre-ordering from. And then in the basement, as far as the commanders go, is Willowdusk. I just think as far as power level goes, it doesn't really equate to Adrix and Nev or Osgir even. That's the quick version of where I think the commanders will be as far as price. There's another big legendary creature that's on everybody's radar right now, and that's Veyran Voice of Duality. Maybe this card has CEDH playability. Maybe it's just a really competitive commander, and that'll make people want to buy it and build it. It kind of is narrow to me, and so I'm not sure of the long-term viability of this one, but again, these single unique printings of these commanders can really go up in price. Right now, pre-order $25 for Voice of Duality. I think that that's probably around where it would stay. I would look at this and go, in a single printing, sealed only product, I think this is a $20 card, and I would be comfortable with that. Guardian Augmenter is a card that's got everybody talking. It's got flash, it gives your commander a little bit of a buff, and commanders you control have hexproof. Having a flash hexproof on a stick for your commander, I like the fact that it only costs 3. That's a little bit like Teferi's protection in that. And so I think that this card is going to be one of the heavy hitters long term. It's pre-selling right now for 30 bucks. I'm a huge fan of Guardian Augmenter, and you should probably see if you can get your hands on a copy of this early, just so you've got it in your collection. Wait a couple weeks after the sets come out and the prices go down a little bit, pick yourself up a copy. Archaeomancer's Map is the other of the really big hitters right now that people are talking about. For 3 mana, you're going to go get 2 planes out of your library, and if a player plays a land and they control more lands than you, you can put a land onto the battlefield. This has the potential to be a white staple for long term. They are, however, I will say, printing a lot of this type of effect lately. So this may be a really good card, but they could print in the next coming months a card that's even better at doing this, and this goes down the tier list a little bit. With that said, this card is really good. It's $27 pre-order right now. I would say if you can pick it up between 15 and 20, that's a really good price for this. And once this sets out of print, this is the kind of card that really has the potential to go up in price. Those are the really heavy hitters that are going to be the real price drivers of this set, in my opinion. I want to look at the middle of the pack though and look at some cards that might be able to break out of where they're at right now. And I want to start with Ink Shield. This one most likely should be in the big heavy hitters group, but right now at $22, it's just a little bit cheaper of a pre-order, but I think the effect is huge. For 5 mana, you're preventing all combat damage, and for each one of that damage, you're getting 2 power in the air onto the battlefield. So it's preventing X damage, and then you're getting X times 2 power onto the battlefield in the air, no less. This is a card that I think is bonkers and is absolutely playable in a lot of black-white decks, or decks that have black-white in their colors. Ink Shield is one that I personally will be picking up as soon as possible, again, so that I just have it in my collection. Oversimplify is only $11 right now, and that just doesn't compute for me. This card seems way better than an $11 card if we're talking about cards that are printed solely in a sealed product and might go out of print at some point. For 5 mana, you're exiling all creatures in blue and green. That's insane. Yes, each player then creates a 0/0 and puts a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the total power of creatures they controlled that were exiled this way. But you're in blue and green, and you're exiling all creatures. $11 pre-order. I think this card is going to be more expensive than that in the long term. I mean, you're in the colors that make it so easy to bounce a creature. Bounce a token, that token's gone. You exiled the board in blue and green for 5 mana. Bounce the token later. Sorry about it. $11. I don't think this card costs that. I think it's more expensive. And the last card I want to look at is Stinging Study in this middle of the pack group before we talk about the cards that I think are overpriced right now and are going to go down in price. Stinging Study for 5 mana, you draw X and you lose X, where X is the mana value of your commander. So you've got a 5-cost commander. You're drawing 5, losing 5, and paying 5 at instant speed. I think this card is way better than people are giving it credit for. Oversimplify and Stinging Study are the 2 cards in this video that I'm the most like, why is nobody really talking about these? Because they seem bonkers to me. This card would be good in Kenrith decks. 5 mana to draw 5, lose 5, and your commander can gain you 5 life for 3 mana. Okay. Edgar Markov. Draw 6, lose 6 for 5 at instant speed, fill your hand back up with vampires and go. And at $10, I think that this card is underpriced and very much has the potential to go up in the future. Those are the middle of the pack cards that I think have the potential to go up. Let's talk about the cards that I think are overpriced right now. And I want to start with Commander's Insight. I don't understand why this card right now is $20 pre-order. This card is not as good as Stroke of Genius. Stroke of Genius is a $7 card. It's 1 blue, 2 other, and X to instant speed. Target player draws X cards. Commander's Insight requires that you have blue, 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 and then X. Target player draws X cards, plus an additional card for each time they've cast the commander from the command zone. Fine, you get a little bit of upside. But, I mean, how many times are you really casting your commander? Maybe 2, maybe 3. Blue Sun Zenith does the same thing. Pull from Tomorrow does the same thing. These cards are much cheaper than $20. Stroke of Genius, like I said, is just a better card straight up, and it's only $7 versus Commander's Insight being a $20 pre-order card right now. Don't believe the hype on this card. I'm not a fan of this card personally, and I don't think it's going to sell for that cost for long. The next card is Monologue Attacks. Lots of people have been talking about this. Is this the next Smothering Tithe? It's not. The answer is it's not. A lot of people have talked in defense of this and against this card. I personally don't like it. I think it's not good. 1 white and 2 other for an opponent casting their second spell each turn. You create a treasure token. So maybe you get to create a treasure token each opponent's step. You probably will. But then, even then, you only have 3 treasure tokens. That doesn't compare to Smothering Tithe at all. And so price-wise, I don't think these cards will line up. Yes, it's a fine card, but I'm talking about the price. Smothering Tithe is expensive because it's so good, and it's such a staple. Monologue Attacks is not going to be a staple. Right now, this card's $21. It's not as good as it seems, and I think the price is not going to hold there long-term. Come back in a year and tell me I'm wrong with this exact clip, and I will say, you're right, I was wrong about Monologue Attacks. The last card that I want to talk about is Essex Fractal Bloom. This card looks awesome on the surface. The first time you would create 1 or more tokens during each of your turns. You may instead, only on your turn, by the way, not instant speed your opponent's turns, you may instead choose a creature other than Essex Fractal Bloom and create that many tokens that are copies of that creature. So if you've got another creature on the battlefield that you want to make copies of, be it yours or your opponent's, I think that this could line up and be a really cool move. But as far as like consistent competitive play, I don't think this is what you want to do with 6 mana. I think you want to be spending that mana on cards like Sakashima, casting Adrix and Nev at 4, doubling Season is cheaper than this. You know, this is the kind of card where it looks like it does a ton and you're like, oh my god, the possibilities are endless. But at the end of the day, I just think it's going to be too circumstantial, and at $25 pre-order, I'm not a huge fan of this card. Let me have it in the comments. What did I miss? What did I think about incorrectly? I don't think that many of these cards are going to retain a ton of value over time, and obviously we know pre-order prices are always insane. Hit that like button if you liked the video, hit that dislike button if you don't. Other than that, I'm tapped out. I'll catch you later.